What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and I've kind of got two different topics to end the day on, and then in each video a small reminder slash favor ask for support. I don't push it often, but the single best way to support this channel is either by joining on YouTube, which you can join as a member. There's an option below the video, which is just like a subscribe star or Patreon, or my subscribe star. I'm going to leave a link in the description. If you're in the financial position to, please don't overextend yourself. You could definitely use your support over at subscribestar.com/thequartering. Whatever is, again, don't overextend yourself, but this goes to keeping the lights on and keeping the channel cranking and allowing me to cover particularly spicy topics. And I greatly appreciate those that can support. And if you can't, that's okay too. Likes and comments and just watching the videos helps greatly as well. So there was basically an incredible rant by the prolific comic book writer Chuck Dixon that absolutely demolishes modern day comics and hits the exact nail on the head with how to, why they're getting crushed. This by bounding into comics.com by John Trent. Longtime Batman scribe and co-creator of Bane, Chuck Dixon, recently explained why Japanese manga is wiping the floor with American comics. So he uploads this show to his YouTube channel, I think weekly. And it's not a very big YouTube channel, but seems pretty based, probably worth being subscribed to. And you see, I've gone all in on manga buying. The booksellers can't keep them in print currently. The other thing is you can have reasonable expectation that manga will finish the series in a way you will enjoy. The expectation from English writers is that even with popular series, you should expect them to make the story worse over time. Finally, an answer to the age-old question on what the deal is. 2145, one of my favorite mangas is about fishing. Many Japanese, including myself, were surprised to hear your statement. And we are arguing what your favorite fishing manga is. Many of us thinks it's, I don't know, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But, you say, why don't you look at manga and do that? That would require SJWs to look inside and take responsibility for their actions and decision. Again, may not agree with you politically, but agree with you when it comes to the books and comics. You see some of his just absolutely dead nuts on comments. Dixon answered, it's not too hard to figure out, really. There's a lot of dedication, passion, and craft in manga comics, and that's missing almost entirely from the big two, meaning Marvel and DC. And isn't that just the truth of it all? I mean, you have this situation where people just clearly either hate the character that they're drawing or don't like them at all, or they don't like their readers. We see this commonly with a lot of these comic book artists turning against their fans, getting a bunch of social media followers because they, for example, because they drew Spider-Man, and then spouting Orange Man bad all day long online isn't a winning formula. Dixon then touted the artwork in manga. It's not hard to see. The artwork is attractive. It's different. It's engaging. It's interesting. It's varied. There's a lot of reasons to like manga. Yeah, imagine that. Not, ugly women and ugly men. Good-looking people. Inspired drawing. Varying art styles. I myself, I know it's probably considered normie, but what better place to start? I ordered the collections. Many of the collections are still on back order, but I was able to get the first couple of books in the Berserk series, and I don't know, just learning to read from right to left is going to be an issue, but I'm looking forward to it. He also goes on to say, and not a whole lot of reasons to like what's out right now, because what's out now for the big two is, for the most part, poorly crafted. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part, it's poorly crafted, poorly conceived. There's an obvious political agenda to everything, and there is no variety. Now, I don't know what Chuck Dixon's personal politics are, and I think that's probably a good thing. But it would be, I guess I would be surprised if he was like a super lefty-leaning person, because otherwise you'd expect him to say, like, this is what the people want. It's not Brondo, it's modern-day politics crammed into their local comic books. I remember a time when I was young, like when I was reading the X-Men comics, I think around the time when Weapon X was coming out, that it felt cool to read comic books. It felt kind of almost edgy to read comic books. And now it's cringe. Like, I see some of my friends going to the comic book shop, which, by the way, is just suffering so badly. I would love to support them, but I mean, there's just nothing I want. I'm not going to just buy something I don't want. I told them to try to get in, like, I don't know, some board games or some graphic, obviously they're bringing in manga as fast as they can, but the stuff that's really in demand is extraordinarily difficult to get. Again, he goes on to say, I want to read this again. There's not a whole lot of reasons to like what's out now, because what's out now for the big two is poorly crafted, poorly conceived, and an obvious political agenda. I mean, are you smashing that like button right now? Now, I mean, by the way, if you're viewing this video and you aren't yet subscribed, please do take a second to click that red subscribe button. It'll be the only way you ever find my videos, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Dixon then expanded on the variety Japanese manga has. In Japanese manga, there's golf comics. There's not one comic about golf. There are multiples. And I've made reference on these videos to one of my favorite mangas. It's about fishing. It's just about fishing. It's not about vampires fishing on another planet or witches fishing or fishing after a zombie apocalypse. This is about guys fishing, surf casting, and whatever. Fishing from boats, fishing from shore, fishing from the banks of rivers, and the stories are fascinating, beautifully drawn, beautifully realized. I didn't even know I would be interested in that kind of comic book until I read that. He then contrasted that with American comics. But here, what do we get? We get superheroes, and poorly done superheroes. There really isn't anything else at the mainstream companies. It's superheroes, superheroes, superheroes. And they're all avatars for the writers. Political agendas. And they're kind of tiresome. They're not particularly well drawn. They're not particularly well realized. And isn't that true of the self-insert of the modern loser comic book artist? Dixon then questioned, why would I want to read this crap if you had a choice of reading a genre that you prefer, be it horror, mystery, espionage, or golf? When there's only one flavor in American comics, of course Japanese comics are going to win the day. The biggest problem here is that all I see are American comic book creators, the people in the mainstream do is complain about manga. Well, why don't you learn from it? Why don't you take a look at what they're doing and try to do that? Well, they just never could, because it's not even about their inability to self-reflect. It's the fact that they would be forced to come to terms with that the customers were right, that people didn't want this crap and they weren't buying it, and they're not buying it. The fact, the idea that, a lot of these, fart sniffers in modern day comics, they think that I'm sure they think that the comic book industry is just dying. It's just dying. Nobody's buying their book because nobody's buying comic books. Except they're not only wrong, they're dead wrong. The comic book industry is flourishing. It's exploding in growth if we include manga. He lamented, so it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs, but everyone saw it coming. It had to happen. There have to be winners and losers. As the American comic book sales fall, something has to replace it, and manga is right there. It's popular. I know my kids know kids who read manga, and they don't know anyone who reads American comics. And then this next line is very important too. The kids that my kids know who read manga are just casual readers. They're not fans. They're not geeks. They're not going to conventions. They just like reading manga. They like reading it on their phone. They like reading it in books. And there you go. I don't see the mainstream, the big two, ever catching up. Although there are alternatives, he concluded. I mean, that's the thing. It doesn't have to be niche to be, it doesn't have to be milk toast to attract casual readers. And I think that's one of the huge things that Marvel and DC has gotten wrong. And on top of that, the people that they're hiring, quite frankly, hate the material. They hate the superheroes. They have zero creative skill, and they take zero creative risk. Marvel and DC comic books exist to keep the licenses active at this point. The market is in indie comics and in manga, and you have years, decades of manga to go back and enjoy now, as many people, including myself, are first discovering it. And again, I really, really appreciate everyone's support. If you can, please do consider coming over to subscribestar.com/thequartering or joining as a member here on the channel. Both are very, very helpful to me, and I figured, hey, it's Friday, why not make a direct ask? I really appreciate it, all of you, each and every one of you, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll talk to you again real soon.